Online multiplayer games have seriously taken over the gaming space in the last few years. I mean, that's not to say that online gaming wasn't always a major popular thing, especially if you grew up in my era in the 2000s. You can't tell me back in the day that Halo wasn't the biggest thing they made since Kool-Aid. Of course, Call of Duty has always been around. Then you had other online games like Elder Scrolls and World of Warcraft and stuff like that. So yeah, online multiplayers have always been popular. But ever since 2017 when Fortnite came out, that seems to be the biggest thing these days. Like, it's so many online multiplayers that I can't even keep up with all of them. Call of Duty still going strong. Fortnite, of course, is the big one. Even GTA went major online. So major to the point where that's half the reason why we still ain't got GTA 6 yet. Then you got other games like Apex, which surprisingly has become part of what I consider to be the big three along with Call of Duty and Fortnite. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do enjoy online games. I love a good Call of Duty session, especially since Black Ops 6 came out with all the new movements. Me and my boys ran First Ascended a few times when it came out. I actually did kind of enjoy that. Short-lived though. To this day, I'm absolutely in love with Helldivers 2, probably one of the best multiplayer games of all time in my opinion, because Helldivers 2 definitely gave us a break from the highly competitive nature of games like Call of Duty. PvE games really just give you a chance to kick back with your boys and just shoot stuff. And I feel like I was one of the few people who actually enjoyed X-Defiant when it came out. I really hate that game is getting shut down. I feel like it had a lot of potential, but unfortunately, shit happens. And don't even get me started on the other niche online games that have their own huge communities like Among Us, Dead by Daylight. Friday the 13th game had a major following for a while. Then came the Texas Chainsaw game that I don't hear anybody talk about anymore. I don't know what happened to it. And the Killer Clowns game, which was basically a copy of Friday the 13th and Texas Chainsaw, which in my opinion was absolutely abysmal when it dropped. I think I touched that game for a day and never went back to it. So all that being said, man, I feel like the influx of these multiplayer games have kind of taken us away from our roots, which was a good single player story game. And I'm not gonna lie, I actually got caught up in the matrix of multiplayer games for a while. Being a husband and a father, it's kind of hard to find time to just sit and play the game for hours. So it's much easier to hit up your homeboys in the group chat, say, hey, any of y'all down for a quick Call of Duty game? Hop online for 30 minutes, play a couple rounds on a small map, and boom, you hop off and you're done. 30 minutes to an hour isn't really enough to really get into a game that has a good story. But it wasn't until my wife got me the PlayStation Portal for Christmas last year. And with that device, I remember why I love single player story mode games so much. The first single player game that I played on my PlayStation Portal was God of War Ragnarok. Even though I played that game a billion times already. In fact, I have about 300 hours of God of War Ragnarok on my PlayStation. Yeah, I'm not ashamed to admit that. But despite the fact that I beat that game so many times already, playing it on the Portal just gave it a whole new experience. After I beat that again, I was inclined to re-download Spider-Man 2 and play that again. And luckily, multiplayer games kind of suck on the Portal, so the only thing that I really can enjoy on there are single player story games. I tried to play Call of Duty on the Portal. It was a horrible experience. I do not recommend doing that. And see, I have some pretty valid reasons as to why I say single player games are better than multiplayer games in my opinion. One of those reasons being the immersion. With multiplayers, there's no story. There's nothing to really get into. They're actually extremely repetitive, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing with almost all of them, right? Pick your loadout, you spawn in and you shoot stuff. You die, then you respawn and you shoot more stuff until you die again. It's usually the same objective type games. Team deathmatch, or move this package from this side of the map to another side of the map, or dominate this space for a little while. It's most definitely brain rot, I'm not gonna lie to you. And it's fun. Fun as hell, actually, don't get me wrong. But sometimes you want something with a little more meaning. It's like a good movie or a good book or a good TV show. You want a story that you can get lost in, something that you can tune the rest of the world out and really lock into. One of the best examples of that is the new God of War games, God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok. Some of the best stories in gaming that I've ever experienced, especially for someone who's been playing God of War games since 2005 when the first one came out. We've seen Kratos' growth as a character. And honestly, the new God of War games made me wish they would go back and recreate the original God of War trilogy, but in the style of the new games. That moment in God of War 2018 when Atreus got sick and Kratos went back to their house to get his blades, when he said that infamous line, "But I am your monster no longer." And then the combat scene that followed right after that. You don't get that kind of feeling from Apex Legends. Or that moment in God of War Ragnarok where you had the Thor fight for the first time. One of the best boss battles in gaming, bro. You don't get that experience from a multiplayer game. Or take a game like Red Dead Redemption 2. fully diving into the world that they created, doing all the side quests, getting lost just riding on your horse, pausing and just admiring the scenery that Rockstar created, taking the time to actually care for Arthur, giving him a bath, changing his clothes, caring for your horse, bringing food back to the camp, making sure you eat, going through that entire journey, knowing the inevitable is going to happen still at the end of it. It's just the feeling that you don't get from just hopping online and spawning in, dying, and respawning again. Even games like The Last of Us and The Last of Us 2 that fully engulf you in these worlds that you will probably never experience, hopefully, falling in love with these characters, even being forced to play as characters who you initially don't like because they killed off a character that you do like. That's real storytelling. It's real emotion that went into that, you know what I'm saying? And you just don't get that feeling from an online game, which is why to this day I still don't understand why video games don't get the same respect as books, TV shows, and films. Some of the best stories that you will ever experience are in gaming, and the best way to experience those stories is with a good single player game. Another thing that multiplayer games just don't give you is that connection to the character and their story. Like with Call of Duty, you may have your favorite operator that you always pick every match, but you don't give a damn about them for real. But when you played as Joel in The Last of Us, you cared about his story. You cared about him losing his daughter in the beginning of the game. You cared about him being bitter. You cared about him bonding with Ellie after a while. You cared about Ellie bonding with Joel after a while. And again with The Last of Us 2, like I said, playing as a character who you initially didn't like, at the end of the game, you kind of cared about Abby. The whole time doing Red Dead 2, you cared about Arthur Morgan. You cared about his betrayal. You actually hated Dutch for the way he tossed him to the side. You hated Micah for the way that he infiltrated the gang and broke up their relationship. You cared that Lenny died. You actually smiled when you saw that John Marston was back in the game, because we all know what happened to him in the first Red Dead. It was nice to see Jack as a little innocent boy. You actually care about these characters. Games like GTA 4, you cared about Nico Bellic. As much as he got on your nerves, you didn't want anything bad to happen to Roman for real. Games like Detroit Become Human, where the storyline could be used as a metaphor for all minority groups. You cared about those androids and their fight for liberation. You wanted them to win. Even though you as a human would typically pick the humans, for once, we actually wanted the AI to win. Having characters that you can identify with and relate to. As a father, I relate to Kratos so much, especially somebody who had a rough past. I look back at my past and I want to be better for myself and for my family in the future. Just like Kratos. That's real character development. And that attachment to those characters is why I love single player games so much. Another major thing that I really do love about single player games is that you move at your own pace. There's no rush. There's no grind to it. When Call of Duty Black Ops 6 first came out, I swear, bro, I already saw people on Prestige 3 after 2 weeks. And in my mind, I'm like, how the hell many hours have you been putting in this goddamn game? Like, bro, how do you already have dark matter and the game was only out for like a month? Do you shower? You know what I'm saying? A lot of times with multiplayer games, you consistently feel behind because you don't sit and grind for hours on top of hours. It's like if you don't hop on for like a week, you just completely feel lost. Come back as a whole new update, new maps, game modes are gone, maps are gone, certain weapons get nerfed, other ones get buffed. It's hard to keep up with an ever-changing system. But with a story mode game, there is no competition. It's just you. If you're playing a level and it's taking you too long to figure it out, hop on YouTube, watch a guide real quick and get past it. Who cares? Especially at this age, man, I'm 33 years old. I don't give a damn. Hell, if I'm fighting a boss battle that's too hard, I'll turn the game difficulty down. I don't care, bro. I'm not trying to impress nobody. As long as I get through the story, that's all I care about. And that's the beauty of a single player game. You do it at your own pace. You can choose to do the side quests, or you can just choose to do the story. You can choose to explore and roam, or you can just focus on the main objectives. You can play on hard, you can play on easy, you can play on normal. The only person that you're concerned about is you and your own experience. I'm sorry, bro, but nothing beats that. On top of all of that, it's just less stressful. I swear there's nothing worse than just wanting to kick back and relax on the game. And every single lobby you get put in with a bunch of tryhards. Ain't nothing worse than being in a sweaty lobby after having a long, stressful day. Bro, I just want to kick back, catch a couple bodies, and get the hell on. I don't want to be up in here fighting for my damn life. And I know the typical response to that is, well, get good at the game. That doesn't matter. You can be as good at the game as you want. You're not going to catch W's every single time. Everybody has off days. And sometimes those off days be a little too damn off for me, especially with games that are known to have cheaters, hackers, and streamers who aren't really trying to enjoy the game. They're just trying to maximize their view count. It's not fun to play against people like that, bro. Sometimes the only competition that I want is myself and the AI system in the game. But the last point that I want to make as to why I enjoy single player games more than multiplayer games, bro, is honestly because it's passion over profit. Now, don't get me wrong. I understand Every game that gets created by a studio is for the sole purpose of making money. Nobody just makes games because they like making it. They make games because they want to get paid. But there's a difference between a passion project that still pays well versus just a straight cash grab. Multiplayer games, sometimes they're free to play, which sounds good on the surface until you realize that you just spent $200 because you just bought a bunch of skins and a bunch of new weapon upgrades. Or in some cases, you'll buy the game for $70 and still pay for cosmetic upgrades and weapons and stuff like that. For example, Black Ops 6, $70. Did it come with a story? Yes, it did. In my opinion, it's one of the best Call of Duty stories we've had in a long time. However, once the story was done, all you're left with is the multiplayer. And with that comes microtransactions. So yeah, you may have paid $70 for Black Ops 6, but look at all the money you spent after that. Battle passes, weapon skins, and then they got crazy shit in the game like sharks and raccoons. I'm trying to figure out when the hell did Call of Duty become Fortnite, but that's another conversation for another day. You don't typically have that with single player games. You buy the game and that's it. And if there is any additional content to purchase, it's usually DLCs that come with additional levels. I would very much rather grind for in-game currency to purchase other costumes and weapons than to have to come out of my pocket. And the thing is, microtransactions don't really seem that bad on the surface, but that's why they're called microtransactions. They're meant to be small transactions that you don't really notice until you think about it and realize how much it adds up. We already had to go from $50 for new games on the PS2 to $70 for new games on the PS5. The last thing I want to do is drop $70 and keep dropping money every single time you drop some new content. At this point, is this a video game or a paid subscription on top of my PlayStation Plus and Xbox Game Pass that I already got to pay for every month? With that being said, I want to hear from you guys. Holla at me in the comments. Tell me, what is your favorite single player story game? Who is your favorite single player story character? And tell me, how do you feel about multiplayer games versus single player games? Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. If you are new here, please like and subscribe to the channel and drop a comment if you really enjoyed this video. For all my return viewers, like I always say, welcome back, gang. 2025, I made a vow to myself that I was going to stay as active on YouTube as possible, and I'm sticking to that promise. Appreciate y'all for rocking with me. Stay tuned for the next video. Y'all be easy.